had these dreams of the mountains, and the mountains faded down and became hats, and in the hats there were faces, and the faces said, "Come." And I went to Tibet, and I went into the monastery. I looked at the statue, and the statue said, "You've come." And I walked out of the monastery, and there was a monk, the old monk, and he looked me in the face, and he singled me out of my group, and he said, "You've come." Tibet is run on yak power, simple, pure, spiritual faith runs Tibet. The people in Tibet are kind and warm and open, and the monks are peaceful.
Tibetans live hand in hand with nature, protecting the environment and respecting the holiness of all life forms. The mountain passes have prayer flags and rock altars to ensure safe passage. Tibet is Asia's principal watershed and the source of its major rivers, supplying water to 47% of the world's population. Yamdrak Yatsu Lake is one of the sacred oracle lakes, and according to legend, when this lake is empty, Tibet will be no more. Hidden away inside this mountain from the disapproval of the world's environmentalists, the Chinese are building a hydroelectric plant that produces power by draining this holy lake. Through following the Buddha, the Tibetans have safeguarded the environment and explored the spiritual nature of man. The Dalai Lama's residence in Tibet is the Portela Palace overlooking Lhasa, one of the world's highest cities. The Dalai Lama's throne sits empty today. The Portela Palace now functions as a museum. The Chinese are restoring the monasteries at the same time they are destroying the Tibetan people and their culture. To the Tibetans, the Dalai Lama is the embodiment of compassion and peace, and they look to him as their spiritual leader. Every photograph became a reason for the Chinese to arrest and imprison the owner. I witnessed firsthand the removal of the Dalai Lama images monastery by monastery. In the eyes of the Buddha, in the heartbeat of Tibet, a culture hangs in precarious balance. Ganden Monastery, one of the largest monasteries of Tibet, was once a community of 10,000 monks. The Chinese destroyed Ganden during the Cultural Revolution. I arrived at Ganden at the very moment the Chinese were attempting to remove the Dalai Lama images, but the monks bravely refused. Already bombed countless ways, already depleted of numbers, the monks at Ganden shouted slogans for the return of the Dalai Lama and their independence. These children are gathering to leave in an evacuation. They won't be returning. I saw the Chinese barreling up to Ganden as I was leaving. Some are orphans and don't even have homes to return to. It's as if the Cultural Revolution is starting again.
Tibet's exiled spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, has arrived in Germany for an international conference on the region. His visit comes amid reports of a new Chinese campaign against symbols of Tibetan independence. Channel 4 News has obtained first visual evidence of the tensions created by this action. Last month, Tibetan monks near Lhasa clashed with Chinese officials as they tried to remove images of the Dalai Lama.
Tibetan monks celebrate evening prayers in the historic monastery of Jokung in Lhasa. Amid the Buddhist statues, there are images of their exiled spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama. 2 days later, the pictures have been removed by order of the Chinese authorities. It's part of China's latest drive to blunt separatist feelings in the region. Tibetans now remember their leader with empty picture frames, a protest against the new Chinese policy. The Chinese campaign met violent resistance at Ganden, the largest monastery in the Himalayas. This amateur film, seen here for the first time, shows monks shouting slogans of Tibetan independence after they'd driven away Chinese officials. A few hours after these pictures were taken, Chinese troops moved in and fired on the monastery, according to Tibetan officials. Beijing denies that troops entered the monastery or that shots were fired. They do concede, however, that 63 monks were detained after the incident.
As prayer wheels turn and the wheel of life revolves, the question is, what will be Tibet's future? We are turning the corner into the 21st century. What can we do? There are solutions. Tibet has great wind and solar potential. I have heard the promise of the wind. I have seen a solar city gleaming in my dreams. You can experience Tibet for yourself and for the world. Support humanitarian agencies that work with the Tibetan people. The future generations of Tibet call.